Hello and welcome to yet another week of empowerment and a week of influence. I'm with my guest Rahila Khan, as usual, a leadership coach. And remember, Rahila Khan is coaching on leadership of love. And in today's episode, we are here to unravel how to be a parent and how to learn the leadership of love through parenting. And the person to take us through that is the beautiful Rahila Khan, who's always with us here each and every week. On every Tuesdays, we also upload these videos on YouTube every single week, and you can always follow up by subscribing to our YouTube channel and also putting on the notification to get them as they drop on the YouTube. So I just want to welcome our guest today to see how fresh she looks with us this morning, Rahila.
Thank you so much, John Gora. Hello, listeners from warm, sunny South Africa again. It's such a pleasure and honor. I actually started looking forward to Tuesday mornings in doing this with you, in just bringing out positive messages globally in shifting consciousness.
That's perfectly well said, Rahila. Thank you for coming, and we appreciate you every time you come because we learn, and the world also learns as we teach them how to lead with love. So, Rahila, just to start off this episode, I would wish that you as a parent define for us what makes up a parent.
Thank you. That's a brilliant question. I think this is what society is grappling with 24/7, as we know. Being a parent isn't easy. There's no procedure manual telling you how to be a parent. There are lots of books on parenting, but I feel personally that it is a personal journey. And in being, in going through your personal journey, only you can grow with your child. And going back right to the time of conception, this is very, very important. And most parents miss the mark because they don't realize at the time of conception, when you're in a relationship, you have all this infatuation, which people believe to be love, and you're so in love with your spouse or your partner. And the next thing, because you're in this space of love, so-called love, I would say, we want to have a child. And again, it comes from a place of being overwhelmed emotionally and not thinking 20 years down the line what responsibility this brings. We only look at in the here and now. Wow, it's amazing that I'm going to have this child with somebody. And for now, you're caught in this beautiful whirlwind romance and so-called love, that we don't look at the financial implications. We don't realize the huge responsibility that comes with parenting. And I can only again speak from my experience in growing up in my home, in how our parents raised us. And it always goes back to past generations, and that's where the learning happens. And this is why I love home-based leadership, because I teach from my own experience. And it's interesting because I'm writing a chapter for a book for somebody, and I had to revisit my childhood because I'm supposed to write about my life story and from the time of my childhood until now, and being an entrepreneur, being in a business, how that has impacted on me being human. So I went back to my childhood and I began looking at how my parents raised us. There were 4 of us. But what was beautiful, somehow I felt my dad would have been, he's very forward-thinking. He was very forward-thinking, and I somehow felt, only discovered now, he could have been psychic almost. He knew like what's going to come for us, each of us. So in having us, I think with their siblings and like my mom and her siblings, they always wanted the pigeon pair of 2 daughters and 2 sons, which is great. But I didn't think at the time they realized, I think my mom knew she didn't want to have more children, but my dad wanted that pigeon pair. And in bringing 4 of us into the world, it has been hard because to provide for us, and he was single-handedly running his business, and how at a very young age he roped us into the business and began teaching us. And this was a conditioning and learned behavior I had to break through in being a leader, in being in business, because The conditioning was so thick and fast in that he would constantly tell us, if you want the finer things in life, you got to work hard. If you want the finer things in life, you got to help me in the business. So we didn't understand this, and we'd all be there and want to help him and stay up late at night because he was working and just to support him. And as children, we would sit up. I was one of those children who would sit up and wait till my dad finished his work, and the next day I'm exhausted. So it's just that we don't know how to deal with these situations as a child. Therefore, I'm sharing this and how all of that impacted later in my life. And I'm going to touch on that. So coming back to parenting and where it starts in the mother's womb. What thoughts are you having as parents? What emotions you are having as parents? Because science has shown more and more that all of that impacts on the cells in your body. Every cell has intelligence. So last time I spoke about the cell receptors that stay open like this to receiving all the chemicals. It shuts down when there is a toxic thought that translates into an emotion. And the emotion is energy in motion. And if it's a toxic one, then the cell receptors shut down. So all the toxins get locked in there. And at the time of the parents having some traumatic event or experience or just having an argument, is passed to the bundles of cell, the new bundles of cell. And then we don't realize how those emotions drive our personality. Our personality is all driven by emotions. If you study the Enneagram, which I've done extensively, you will understand how we are fixated with certain core emotions and behavioral traits that we got from our parents, or we tend to develop it as we go along. So by the time a child is 5 years old, the personality has formed. And so often, if in the mother's womb, there was some kind of rejection, if parents were not prepared to have a certain child, that child will always attract rejection right into the workplace. And therefore, we find so often people say, oh, I'm applying for so many jobs and I'm just being rejected. Or even amongst their friends, somehow they feel left out. So it all starts there. And these are the issues we must address. We got to go back and reflect and investigate why are we behaving in a certain way in the here and now. And once we address that, then we don't carry it into the present. Coming back again, there's another Japanese doctor, Dr. Masaru Emoto. And this is very important, and I'd like to bring his teaching into this conversation because it's so powerful, especially when we did the outreach work. We were trained in understanding how the cells work and how the atoms in the body impact on behavior. And what he did was he took 2 glasses of water, okay? One was both glasses had ordinary tap water. So he photographed the first glass, and he obviously had very sophisticated, specialized lens to do this. So he photographed the first glass of tap water. The second one was preyed upon. The second glass had all the positive thoughts that you want to put into the water of gratitude, of blessings, and saying that every molecule of this water is going to do something good for me. And you're putting all these positive thoughts. So what he did, he then, got these 2 glasses of water frozen. And again, they cut through that. They cut through the ice of the water. And the most amazing thing was captured. The tap water that was not preyed upon when it was dissected, the molecules looked ugly, dirty, and it just didn't look good. The second glass of water that was preyed upon had crystal-like molecules in it. It is the most beautiful pictures to see. You can Google www.hado.net. And you will find the research of Dr. Masaru Emoto. And then he began looking at the consciousness around the world because we're surrounded by masses of water, which is the ocean. And the seven oceans are all interlinked. And that's where the interconnectivity of water is just like human nature and consciousness. Can you see that? So nature has so much to teach us as well. And when you looked at water surrounding certain countries, and you looked at the consciousness of the people, and then you looked at the water was more polluted where the people were more polluted. It's so interesting. So where there's prayer and more positive consciousness, the water and nature will resonate that. Or we will resonate with nature, rather, I should say. So can you see how the baby in the mother's womb is surrounded by water? So if our body is made up of 70% water, can you understand how important it is for us to have positive thoughts, emotions 24/7? Parenting starts there. That is leadership at its best. So when we are in awareness of that, we are fully present to our child's need, that the mother will have complete rest during the pregnancy. She will know when her legs are tired, she needs to rest. She needs to tune into the baby and speak to the baby and say, I'm so sorry that I did not rest. I am so sorry that I did not eat well because you don't have the proper nourishment as well. So when we become mindful, when we are aware, that is conscious parenting starting from the time of conception. Can you see how important that is? It's like it's a fertile ground, the mother's womb. And of course, the father's womb, as in the DNA, because it's both DNA and they both need to nurture it. So what do you do when you have a fertile piece of ground? It is ready to plant something, isn't it? So when you plant the seed, that seed bursts open. It's a very painful process, of course, going through the trimesters of pregnancy, depending what's happening externally as well. So all that impacts on that seed. Well, that seed will internalize it, and that seed cannot speak. So often you would find in the womb, a child cannot speak and tell the mother, I'm hungry now, feed me, or I need water. The mother needs to be totally present. Can you see, parenting does not start only after a child is born. It starts at the time of conception. And this is where we teach conscious parenting. It's very, very important that you're mindful of your every single thought. You will not do what your mom and your grandmother did, where you overwork or where you can't speak up, where you cannot educate yourself. You can. Education is found again at the click of a button on Google. So there's no reason why anyone cannot be educated about the biochemistry, about the physiology, and what is this biology of being human is all about. Parenting for me starts there. Because so often, John Gora, I would get parents coming to me with a child who is newly born and does not sleep well or is not feeding well. So often I'd get a mom and she'd say, I'm really struggling with breastfeeding my baby. So I would take her back to the time of conception and what happened. I would even take her back to when her mom was pregnant with her to see what happened there, because so often the generational pattern is passed on. And so often we find, when I speak to moms, that they did not take good care of themselves, or they were already preparing for the birthing process, and they so often want their husbands to be there. And some parents, some of the mothers who live in Johannesburg, it's an hour flight from Johannesburg to Durban, because the moms are here and they want to give birth so they can get that support. So I remember this one client of mine said she just wanted her husband to be there. And he said, not to worry, as soon as she's, gone into hospital, she must let him know and he'll get a flight and he'll be there. His flight, I don't know, for some reason got delayed or whatever. Only God knows what happens most of the time. And he wasn't there. Can you understand, during the whole labor procedure, this mother was waiting for her husband. Her mind is not on the birthing of the baby as much as her husband being present. And he missed the whole thing. And she was quite upset about it, because he asked his parents to be there, but he wasn't there. So all these little things impact on the child. Can you see that?
That's very clearly shown over there, Rahila. So definitely, that's a clearly indicator, Rahila, that parenting starts with responsibility, emotions, and how you've explained it. How emotions drive personality, and it's also great to understand after knowing what parenting is all about, like you have explained. We need to really know what came first. Is it leadership or is it parenting? And I would put it in this question. Must one learn to be a leader before becoming a parent? Or should we become a parent, then learn leadership through parenting, Rahila?
That's a trick question in a way. However, I'll do my best to answer that. I think it's all-encompassing in that you can learn about leadership. I think when we're at university, or lots of us are going into different programs, especially with emotional intelligence, we can read up. And we can also go and look at all this information I've been talking about in how our thoughts impact. And there's a beautiful book written by Dr. Candace Pert, The Molecules of Emotion. So we can read about all of these things. And lots of us are studying. Sometimes psychology is part of what we study. If you're doing social work, you're learning in the humanities department, you will learn about everything. Parenting is something that comes without a manual, so it is trial and error for each person. But I think when we are mindful, when we become emotionally intelligent simultaneously with being a parent, we will do better. So it is important that when a child, from the time the child is 1 year old and can speak or vocalize and speak about emotions, what I encourage parents to do is to make 2 charts. The one chart would be where you can have pictures of sad faces, angry faces, and so on, or you could put words if a child can read. I know children can read from the age of 2. So it's good to encourage reading and all of that. So the first chart will have all the negative emotions. The next chart will have all the positive emotions. So when a child sees this upside down face and is feeling sad and will point to it, then the parent can say, okay, so you're feeling that, where in your body you're feeling it. So the child can point to the heart or the mind or the stomach. So often with children, when they have emotional issues, they always have a tummy ache. Then we know it's emotional. So rather than giving them medicine, we can unpack it in another way, because we know 100% of illnesses is as a result of emotional issues, even a headache, or the child may not want to go to school because of bullying. So that's something I would like to talk about, where bullying starts. And I'll come back to that in a minute. So the parent then will lead the child to the next chart, and then the opposite of unhappy or sad would be happy or joy or something like that. And the child will point to it. So you're immediately clearing out the negative and you're embedding a positive command that anchors in the neurology of the child. So you're teaching the child at a very young age how to become emotionally intelligent, how to vocalize and understand what's happening in the body. It's very, very important to teach that. The basic emotional intelligence skills with parents. And the more we empower parents, the more they are able to empower somebody else. So it's good to do this with one parent, and exponentially it grows. Coming back to the whole idea of bullying, I was asked to address a principal's forum. It was 2 years ago, and they wanted me to talk about bullying. And the principal and teachers were so fascinated, because bullying starts again in the mother's womb, depending on how the father is treating the mother or how the mother is treating the father. So it's not that men always bully women. Women also bully men. So it's a two-way street. But where did we learn that? We learned that from our parents. But we didn't address it, so we're doing the same thing. So a child in the mother's womb will already learn how the mother shuts down when the father bullies her, and how her body contracts rather than expanding. Because when you expand into joy and happiness, it's outward. But when you're feeling sad and you're not feeling good, the body immediately contracts. So the baby takes it on. So bullying starts there. Therefore, again, communication, conscious communication in conscious parenting is most important in how we speak. And also, even if we said the wrong thing, in the next moment to say, no, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that I said that to you. And if the father and the mother can place their hands on the mother's womb and ask for forgiveness from that embryo, from that fetus, because the intelligence knows it has taken it on. Ask for forgiveness and say, I'm so sorry that I spoke so rudely to your mom, or I'm so sorry that I spoke so rudely to your dad. Forgiveness is the key. to everything beautiful in relationships as we move forward. Very, very important. The child in the womb is already learning communication and how important it is to say, I am sorry. Because that is huge when somebody says that. Because only you know how humiliated you felt when somebody put you down and rummaged you. So in that somebody saying sorry, in that humiliation, you learn humility as well. Both sides. So this is very, very important in emotional intelligence, even in the workplace. If you said the wrong thing in haste, and so often we do that, we become reactive, that reptilian brain just kicks in. We just want to chew somebody's head off. But in hindsight, when you look back, you say, I've been so ugly. I need to pluck up the courage and go to the person and say, I'm so sorry. I just had a bad morning and I'm sorry that I did this to you. Please forgive me. What can I do to support you, or what can I do to fix it? Won't the other person feel so validated and so acknowledged that you're doing that? And that is how we grow as human beings. This is what leadership is about. This is what great leaders like Nelson Mandela have taught us, and other leaders of the world. So we learn from these amazing leaders, icons of the world, in taking the good, in addressing the bad. So parenting and leadership goes hand in hand in how we become amazing leaders through parenting. How we teach leadership to our children via parenting. It's amazing. So it's a two-way street. That child, if parents do what I'm just sharing with you, if they follow through consistently with great commitment and concentration, you would find that child, when the child goes to school, he will have so much empathy and compassion for other children whose parents are going through separation or divorce. There won't be any teasing because he knows how hurtful it is. Children will stop doing that. Children emulate adults who tease and put other people down. Parents do that to their own children. They say the worst things to the children. Oh, you can't speak properly. Look at the way you are. Stand up. Look at your body. What are you doing? You're eating all the wrong foods. Who's giving the child the wrong foods? Because you don't know about good nutrition, so you let your child eat any junk food and then you blame the child. The child is a child. The child is innocent. The child doesn't know any better. The body will eat anything you feed it, including us. If I want to eat cake right now, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, my body will eat it because I'm feeding it. It's the same thing with children. Whatever you give them, they'll eat it because they don't know. But if you teach children the value of eating nuts, you will teach the children the value of eating fresh vegetables and fruits, and educate them about the nutrients in each thing. And if you give the child chocolates and sweets and you educate them about how too much of it is no good for the body, I promise you children will opt for the better, for the healthier nutrition than the other. They will. I know this from teaching my own child. And today he's an adult. He will only, in fact, I am learning from him now how to eat consciously. Sometimes I tend to eat a chocolate or cake. He won't eat it. We don't have fizzy drinks because he knows what it will do to his body. So he's investing a lot of money in gymming and taking care of his body. So nutrition is very important in our home. If we do have visitors, an option won't be fizzy drinks in my home, even if there are children present. It's not an option because we are leading by example how we eat and how not to take too much food on your plate. Start with the little. Eat properly and slowly, that your body digests the food, that you won't eat more than your stomach wants to eat. Because when we eat too quickly, we tend to eat big size portions and the food doesn't digest and our mouth still wants to taste and eat, but the stomach is full. So we're not paying attention to the stomach. We're worrying about what the eyes can see and what the mouth wants from a place of taste. So your 5 senses are very, very important, and we need to teach children this. Something else I do in parenting, and parents don't understand this, is understanding the personalities of your children. There are 3, it's an acronym, KAV. The K is for kinesthetic. If I'm eating food, how does it feel if I bite into an apple? I hear the crunch. So the auditory, the A kicks in. I can hear the crunch. And then the V is a visual. I look at the apple and I see how beautifully red and shiny it is, or green. And I'm biting into it, so I'm tasting the flavors of it. If we can engage our children in the five senses, that is the best meditation ever, because you are occupying the mind with your five senses. Can you see how important that is? Same with the air. When you breathe it, you can't see it, but you can feel it when you breathe it into your nostrils. You can feel it going down your windpipe into your lungs, right into your belly. That is mindful breathing. And that's what we teach mothers when they are pregnant. So the child is already learning in the womb how to breathe. But the mother only does it then because of the birthing process. After that, she forgets how to breathe. She's always stressed.
Mhm.
But if you follow through with correct breathing, you won't be stressed because you're getting more oxygen into the body as well. Imagine how beautiful it is when we sit and we teach our children this. In conscious parenting, John Gora, and I want to enforce this with parents out there, please spend quality time with your children. What do I mean by that? Assuming you just got back home and the kids are seeing you after 8 to 10 hours, they're excited to see you. And we just want space. We want to kick off our shoes. We want to get stuck in the kitchen. I would advise, no matter how tired you are, have a drink of water, give your kids a hug and say, I love you, I missed you. And I'm going to talk to you just now about how your day was. May I just go into the kitchen and prepare? Dad and I are going to prepare supper. So can you give us the time? If you can just sit and look at your books or play, and Dad and I will be with you in a minute. The child would not trouble you or be attention seeking because you already gave the child that hug. You already gave the child quality time in just being present. Because sometimes a child would come back from school and had a bad day, especially if somebody teased him or bullied him, and he wants to get it off his chest. And he can't wait till after supper to do it. And he's going to trouble the parents to get that attention. Can you see that? And they become more troubled and they will engage in troublesome activities, even in the home, to get your attention. So it's very, very important that the parents sit the child down and say, I'm so sorry that you went through this. How did it feel when that boy hurt you? Then the child will go to those charts and say, I felt very sad. I feel hurt. And the mother will say, okay, but if you look on this other chart, what if the child was hurting, something happened in his home? Maybe his parents didn't hug him, therefore he doesn't know what to do. Maybe he watched somebody hitting somebody and he's trying it out on you. Then you're teaching the child resilience, you're teaching the child how to stand up for himself. Then the next day the child will go back and pluck up the courage and say to the boy, you really hurt my feelings yesterday. And I wouldn't want you to do that ever again to anybody. And I just want to say to you, I'm sorry that you behaved that way, but it's unacceptable. And can we be friends and shake hands on it? You know, when somebody who's aggressive and hard on themselves and they lack that love, this is the best way where they just melt because you're reaching out to them from a place of love and compassion. All the hardness that they feel in themselves just drops instantaneously. I know this from working with hardened criminals at correctional services. They're so hard inside that they don't know how to feel love or compassion or anything. But the moment we go into their lives and see what happened, and then they will share how the parents beat them up, where the walls couldn't save them. Or the parent was on drugs and beat the mother and they couldn't save the mother. So all of that is all festering inside of them. And the moment you let that lid open a little bit, it all, the floodgates open and the inner being just softens. So that's where we can teach the boy child to cry. It's okay for the boy child to cry. The boy child does not need to be strong like the father and not cry and think he must save the family and protect the family and be hard. No, you don't need to be that. You can be soft and you can be very powerful because love will transmute all negativity. Love will transmute that block of ice within you. We know that. The sun, if there's an iceberg, even a glacier, the sun can melt it. So not why with the human physiology. Very, very important. These little things that we do in parenting is so important. Also to read to children. Children love listening to the parents' voices,
Hmm.
and be more animated in how you bring the characters out in the book. And you can have so much fun. And then you can all act out each part and just enjoy that time. And that only takes 5 to 10 minutes a day.
That was a super powerful talk over there, Rahila Khan. And uh, I really love how you're finishing this part by saying you can be soft but so powerful, and touching on the boy child to be allowed to cry. This is something that also have received a lot of conversation in terms of how we bring up a boy child in families, and um, we tend to relax the side of the girl child, and harden the boy child side. But that sums it up. Teach them to be soft but so powerful. So I so love how we've gone through this conversation, Rahila. And I had my last question, which I cannot ask, because if you have been listening to this conversation, you can clearly see how Rahila has, trimmed this down. And the question was, how can one learn leadership of love through parenting, which we have tremendously covered through the conversation that we've just had. So I would not, go into that. I would just wish to ask you your last parting shot, and through that, I would wish also that you explain to us how a parent can instill discipline to a child, through showing that leadership of love. Because sometimes, some kids would do things that would need a hard punishment. I would call it hard punishment. But how would you do that with the leadership of love to help this kid to understand his mistakes, and until and again instill fear, I would call it, in him not to do it again, Rahila?
Yes. You see, again, it comes back to mindfulness in how, as parents, we conduct ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If we are at a table and if the man is expecting his wife to clear the table and he just wakes up and just leaves everything, or he does not pick up after his own dirty towels, where he leaves his shoes and dirty laundry, the child is watching that. So the child will become rebellious, and the mother, on the other hand, is on the receiving end because her partner is not playing the part. And the child becomes ill-disciplined because he's watching the parent. It's very difficult. Both parents need to be on the same page when it comes to discipline. Discipline must be in the home and in the classroom or wherever. It's like having road rules. We must have traffic rules because we need to use that as an analogy or any game to teach a child why rules are important. And if children are consulted and the house rules are made together, I did this with the children in my classroom where I engaged with them and I said, as much as I'm the teacher, I'm also part of your team. What rules can we make that our classroom is run like a well-oiled machine as a team? And every child then will put their hand up and will make a list of rules, like no chewing gum in the class, you will not eat in the class, your environment must be clean. And at the same time, what punishment must follow if nobody is following that? Like running around and screaming, that's not allowed. If that happens, what would you want to happen? And children then will decide, when you take away a TV program or you take away playing with your favorite toy, they'll miss it. Or you can't go to your friend's party because you misbehaved, and you've got to enforce it to the hilt. It's very hard, but sometimes we got to be cruel to be kind. Children like discipline. Children want to be rule bound because they know you in charge. If you're not going to do that, they will rule you. And so often there's a reversal of roles where parents are abused by a 5-year-old or 10-year-old because they just want to have their way and throw a tantrum or hold their breath until they get blue in the face. That's how naughty children can be. So for it not to get so bad, it is how we communicate. What are we doing that's setting an example yet again? So, and also sit the child down. If the child left their Lego all over the floor, and you call the child and you sit them down and you say to them, what would happen if mom walked on that right now? Or if we had a visitor and they walked on that, you tell me what would have happened. The brain will register, oof, my feet would be hurt. The fact that they recognizing it, they're coming to their own self-realization, they know that they must pick it up. That there's a place for everything and everything in its place. So when you play with your Lego, make sure you pick up every little block and put it back there and keep your bucket where it's supposed to be in the playroom. You need to enforce that from the time the child is 1 year old. And through repetition, you'll absolutely wing it. How I know this, we did this and disciplined our child in that way. When he knew as a 5-year-old he needed to play soccer, that twice a week he needed to be on the ground for training at 5:30, that he knew his homework needed to be done. If there were projects or anything for the following week or tests, he needed to prepare in advance. So from the age of 5, we taught him. We also taught him the importance of routine, of sleeping well, eating well, because you want to play soccer. And do you know he did all his work in advance because he so wanted to play soccer. To this day, he's still playing soccer and he's still so organized because he learned as a child. And he also knows when he comes back home, as an adult, he still does this. You know, your lunchbox and your bottles that you take to school, you bring it back. And the first thing you do when you enter the house is get to the kitchen, empty your bag and put that into the washer basin so that it can be washed for the next day. You teach them that if you don't do that, the next day I won't have a lunchbox for you. I cannot give you water or juice in your bottle for the next day. Children will understand that and they will learn. My child from the age of 5 is still doing it to this day. His wife will be so happy that he can help and do that and wash the dishes. He can do his own laundry. He can do his own dishes. Why not? We must teach boys and girls to break away from stereotypical roles, that it's okay for men to clean up after eating. It's okay for men to sweep the house. It's okay for women and girls to wash the car. It's okay for the women to take the car to the garage. It's okay for the women to understand the engine components of the car so that if she needs to check the oil at the service station, she's empowered enough to get out of a car and know that the attendant is doing the right thing. I had to learn all of that. So we break all these stereotypical roles, and that's where we become super empowered. And that is how discipline is maintained, through consistency, through repetition, and through good examples of adults in the home. Very, very important.
Very important indeed, Rahila. Very, very much important. So that was a very powerful talk that we have today. And I really appreciate each and every word that you said and you spread outside there. I hope the world is listening and they're enjoying these talks and also learning a lot of things like I'm learning today with you. We've learned a lot of things about parenting, knowing what exactly parenting is. And we've also learned how what came first. Is it leadership or is it parenting? The reality is that these things go a long way. You learn through parenting, you learn leadership through life. As you know, from the womb of your mom, you start to learn to be a leader. And there are things that are attached together. We have also seen how you can spread the leadership of love through parenting by instilling discipline to your children, becoming, harsh to make them great and not harsh to kill them. So this is a very important discussion that we've had, Rahila. So I would give you some few seconds just to say your parting shot and also, salute your listeners outside there, Rahila.
Yes, I'd like to end today's chat by saying that in order to have a beautiful society, in order to have a beautiful business, leadership and a community begins in the mother's womb. It starts there. If you're happy in the mother's womb, you'll be a happy child growing in your home and opening into the heart center of love, that you will take that love into school, into business, into wherever you go. And that is how we all build a happy community, a healthy community. So again, it starts with the biology in changing their psychology, and automatically our sociology changes. And all the social ills of society then will be addressed. Can you see that? So we won't have all the scourge of societal issues then, of drugs, of women abuse or men abuse. All that will come to an end if every parent takes responsibility. It starts with each of us. And I urge everyone out there, if you have parents, take time to learn new things and take time to be different every day in how you relate to others, especially your children. Love them, learn to hug them. Our parents didn't hug us that much, but we can do it. That's what leadership of love is all about. That's what parenting is all about. Every child wants to be hugged and be told that, he or she is loved. And that is our job as parents. We must make sure we do that all the time, throughout the day, whenever we can. Even as couples, we need to express our love to each other. We must be able to hold and kiss each other so children can see how important love is. Even after your worst fight, you can make up and love each other. So children can see that as much as you had a difference of opinion or disagreement, that at the end, love wins. Love is always a winner. And I think we leave that on a winning note there.
Very powerful, Rahila. That's absolutely powerful. And it's a message that I would wish to spread to those who are intending to be parents and those who are looking forward to be parents. We have been told that it starts right in the womb. So prepare your womb and prepare to be a good parent with leadership of love. So train your kids from the start of when the fertilization starts. Train them to be leaders, train them to love each other. That was the talk that we had today. Thank you so much for joining us, Rahila. Thank you so much, the listeners who are outside there. We also encourage you to keep on subscribing to our channel and also, putting that notification to see what Rahila had for us each and every single week of the month. Until we meet again, Rahila, next week, bye-bye and God bless.
Bye, John Carter. Bye, listeners.
Thanks for keeping it at One Talk Radio. It's a beautiful thing to see you over there watching our videos each and every single week. I would just like to request you to give us a comment down there. Tell us what you would wish us to discuss next, or rather, suggest to us something that we can do better, that we are not doing in the best way that you think should be. Thanks once again. My name is John Gora, and this is One Talk Radio. Until we meet again next week, bye for now.